At the deadly edge of Pinewood's firing range, a woman mocked for her tattered coat and duct-taped rifle case faces a crowd that scorns her gender. "Women only clean houses," they jeer. But as she lies prone, her gaze defying the mob, 10 shots ring out, perfect and staggering. What secret hides behind this humble figure? A forgotten legend, or a storm to shatter prejudice? Like and subscribe to Diary Women's Story to uncover this earth-shaking tale, where women rewrite history. Part 1. The Arrival and the Scorn. The Pinewood training field gleamed under the midday sun, its steel rails and glass panels reflecting wealth and precision. This was no ordinary range. It was a cathedral of marksmanship, where defense heirs, venture-backed tacticians, and elite shooters honed their craft. Polished walnut walls lined the main lounge, broken only by trophy cases and rifles mounted under glass, their brass plaques etched with names of male champions and founding donors. The air buzzed with confidence, male confidence, punctuated by the clink of crystal tumblers and the low hum of tactical jargon. Today was an open qualifier, a rare chance for outsiders to step into this exclusive arena, but the crowd expected no surprises. They were here to see the usual victors, not some nobody in a frayed coat. Emma Stone, 38, stepped through the glass doors, her boots scuffing softly on the polished concrete. Her parka, faded green and patched at the elbows, hung loose over a plain gray sweater and jeans worn thin at the knees. Her brown hair, streaked with early gray, was pulled into a low ponytail, and her face, unadorned, sharp, and weathered, betrayed no emotion. In her left hand, she carried a rifle case, its edges bound with peeling duct tape, the handle wrapped in faded cloth. Tucked in her pocket was a crumpled letter, its edges soft from repeated handling. The letter, from a former colleague now advising Pinewood, had summoned her back to test the trajectory system she designed years ago. A system she'd been forced out of developing because she was a woman in a man's world. The lounge fell quiet for a split second as she entered, then erupted into whispers. Eyes flicked to her coat, her case, her unpolished presence. A young shooter, Jake Carter, leaned against a leather couch, his custom rifle slung over his shoulder like a trophy. "Who let the thrift store in?" he called, loud enough for the room to hear. Laughter rippled through the crowd, sharp and cruel, like a pack of hyenas circling prey. Jake's buddies, all in sleek tactical gear, joined in, their phones already out filming. "Check this out," one said, zooming in on Emma's taped-up case. The live stream's caption flashed, "Grandma's got a gun, disaster incoming." Comments flooded in. "Go back to knitting, lady. Women don't belong here." Emma didn't flinch. Her eyes, a steely gray, swept the room, not with anger but with a quiet, unnerving calm. She moved toward the check-in desk, where a staffer in a crisp Pinewood polo shirt eyed her like she'd wandered into the wrong building. "Name?" he asked, his tone dripping with condescension. "Emma Stone," she said, her voice low, steady, like the click of a bolt sliding home. She slid the crumpled letter across the desk, its Pinewood letterhead unmistakable. The staffer, barely glancing at it, snorted. "This must be a joke, sweetheart. Women don't shoot here. They serve coffee." He tore a corner of the letter and tossed it back. "You sure you didn't mean the sewing club?" The room roared with laughter. A woman in her 20s, Lisa Hayes, stood near the trophy case, her tactical sleeves emblazoned with sponsor logos. She crossed her arms, her lip curling. "God, she's embarrassing us all," she said to her friend, loud enough for Emma to hear. "Women like her make us look weak. That coat? Straight from a dumpster. She's no shooter. She's a disgrace." Emma's hand tightened briefly on her rifle case, the only sign she'd heard. She signed the clipboard. Emma Stone in sharp, deliberate strokes, then stepped toward the range path, her boots crunching on gravel. The staffer clipped a badge-marked visitor to her coat, muttering, "Don't trip on your way out, honey." The crowd's mockery followed her like a shadow. Jake tossed a coin toward her feet, where it skidded across the gravel and stopped near her boot. Scrawled in black marker, "Back to the kitchen." The room howled, phones flashing as they captured the moment. Live stream comments exploded. "Cook us dinner, Grandma. Women can't shoot worth a damn." Another shooter, a burly man with a buzz cut, threw a rag at her. "Wipe my scope, would ya, doll?" he yelled, grinning as the crowd cheered. Emma didn't pause. She stepped over the coin, her gaze fixed ahead, as if the jeers were nothing more than wind. But the air crackled with hostility, thick with the unspoken rule of Pinewood. This was a man's domain, and women, especially women like her, plain, unpolished, daring to exist here, were trespassers. The letter in her pocket felt heavier now, a reminder of why she'd come. Years ago, she'd been the lead designer of Pinewood's trajectory system, a prodigy who'd mapped bullet paths with mathematical precision. But the bored all men had sidelined her, deeming a woman unfit to lead. They'd erased her name, buried her contributions under promotional banners, and forced her out. The letter was her summons back, not for glory, but to prove her system still worked, to prove she was still here. Up on the viewing deck, two instructors watched, arms crossed. One, Ryan Holt, the head trainer, sipped coffee and smirked. "A woman shooting 1,000 meters? He said, just loud enough to carry. "Might as well bring a broom. She'll be crying by the first shot." The other instructor chuckled, shaking his head. "Bet she's someone's wife, lost on her way to the gift shop." The announcer's voice crackled over the loudspeaker, laced with amusement. "Entry 9, Emma Stone, guest shooter. No team, no affiliation. Open qualifier, 1,000 meters. Let's see how this goes." The crowd erupted again, clapping slowly, mockingly, like they were watching a comedy act. Lisa raised her phone, panning toward Emma's taped-up case. $5 says she doesn't even load the rifle right, she called. Jake shouted back. 10 says she runs off sobbing. Emma reached the firing platform, her boots quiet on the packed gravel. The mat was cold steel, scarred from years of recoil. She set her case down, the duct tape catching the light, a stark contrast to the carbon fiber rigs around her. The wind whispered across the ridge, tugging at her coat, but she stood still, unhurried, as if the crowd's venom couldn't touch her. A shooter nearby snapped a photo, captioning it, "Before the flop, woman tries to play man's game." Another coin sailed through the air, landing on her mat. "Stay home." Mom was scrawled across it. The crowd roared, phones flashing, live stream comments piling up. "This is why women shouldn't try." Pathetic. Emma's fingers brushed the letter in her pocket. Its words burned into her mind. "Come back, Emma. Test the system. Show them." She opened her case, the latches snapping with a soft, deliberate crack. Inside, the rifle was old but pristine, its wooden stock scratched but polished, the scope's glass clear despite its worn rim. She lifted it, her movements precise, practiced, like a ritual. The crowd's laughter didn't falter. They saw only the coat, the tape, the woman who didn't belong. They didn't see the hands that had built their range, the mind that had shaped their targets. Ryan's voice boomed again. "If she scores above 0, I'll eat my clipboard." The crowd cheered, a wave of male bravado washing over the range. Emma loaded her first round, her fingers steady, her breath slow. She didn't look at the coins, the rag, the phones. She looked at the target, 1,000 meters away, a speck against the earth. The crowd's jeers grew louder, a chant rising. "Go home! Go home!" But Emma Stone, the woman they'd erased, the woman they mocked, was already home. And she was ready to fire. Part 2. The escalation and the fire. The wind cut across the Pinewood training field, tugging at the high grass and rattling the steel rails of the 1,000-meter range. The firing platform was a stark stage. It's cold, weathered mats lined with elite shooters adjusting precision scopes and carbon fiber bipods. Their assistants murmured wind data, tablets glowing with real-time analytics. The viewing deck above buzzed with spectators, defense heirs, old contractors, and venture-backed tacticians, sipping bourbon and watching through tinted partitions. This was their coliseum, and Emma Stone, in her frayed parka and duct-taped rifle case, was the unwitting gladiator they'd come to mock. Emma stood alone at the far left lane, her plain mat unmarked, her boots scuffed against the gravel. The crowd's laughter from the lounge still echoed in her ears, their coins. Back to the kitchen, "Stay home, Mom," lying like taunts on her mat. She knelt, her movements deliberate, and unlatched her case with a soft crack. The rifle inside was old, its wooden stock scratched but polished, the scope's rim dulled, but its glass pristine. She lifted it, her fingers tracing the barrel, and for a moment, her mind flickered back to a memory she'd buried. 10 years ago, she'd stood in a Pinewood boardroom, 28 and blazing with ambition, presenting her trajectory system to a table of gray-haired men. She'd been the lead designer, her equations flawless, her prototypes unmatched. But the chairman, a man with a voice like gravel, had cut her off. "Women don't lead projects, Miss Stone," he'd said, his smile patronizing. "You're better suited to support roles." The room had laughed, and within weeks, she'd been demoted, her work credited to a male colleague. When she'd protested, they'd forced her out, her name erased from the project. She'd left Pinewood with nothing but her rifle and a wound that never healed. Now, the letter in her pocket, "Come back, Emma. Test the system," was her chance to reclaim what they'd stolen. The crowd's jeers snapped her back. Jake Carter, the cocky shooter from the lounge, leaned over his lane grinning. "Hey, thrift store," he shouted. "You gonna dust that relic or shoot it? Or is cleaning all you're good for?" The crowd roared, phones flashing. His live stream, now at 2,000 viewers, pulsed with comments. "Women can't aim. Back to the trailer park, lady." Emma didn't look up. She loaded her rounds, each one sliding into the dented tray with a quiet clink. Her hands were steady, but her jaw tightened as Jake's voice carried again. "Bet she's never shot past her backyard. Women like her don't belong in our world." His buddy, a shooter with a sponsor patch, chimed in. "Yeah, stick to washing dishes, sweetheart. This is a man's game." Up on the deck, head trainer Ryan Holt leaned on the railing, his coffee cup forgotten. "Look at that coat," he said, loud enough for the spectators to hear. "She's probably on welfare, thinking she can play with the big boys. Women don't have the nerve for 1,000 meters." The crowd chuckled, nodding. A female spectator, her nails painted crimson, added, "She's making us all look bad. Real women here earn their place, not beg for it." Emma's fingers paused on her rifle. The words stung, not because they were new, but because they were echoes of that boardroom a decade ago. Support roles. Not a leader. Not one of us. She pulled a small, worn notebook from her case, its pages filled with handwritten ballistics, angles, wind calibrations, hold points. She scanned a marked page, nodded once, and closed it. The crowd didn't notice. They were too busy laughing. Lisa Hayes, the young female shooter, stood 2 lanes down, her tactical gear gleaming. She turned to her assistant, voice sharp. "God, she's pathetic," she said. "Women like her, plain poor, no class, give us a bad name. She shouldn't be here, embarrassing us in front of the men." Her assistant smirked, filming Emma's taped-up case. The live stream caption read, "Poor girl dreams big, falls flat." Comments poured in. "No wonder women aren't taken seriously. She's a joke." Emma lay prone, her cheek meeting the rifle's stock like an old friend. Her breath slowed, sinking with the wind's faint whistle. The crowd's noise faded, but not before another taunt landed. A shooter tossed a crumpled paper towel onto her mat. "Clean up after you lose, maid," he yelled, and the laughter swelled. The paper towel fluttered, catching the edge of her mat, next to the coin that read "Stay home, Mom." Emma's eyes flicked to it, then back to the target, 1,000 meters away, a postage stamp against the earth. Ryan's voice boomed over the loudspeaker, dripping with mockery. Entry 9, Emma Stone, no team, no chance. Open qualifier, 1,000 meters. Let's see how fast she cries. The crowd clapped, slow and theatrical, chanting, "Go home, go home." Jake leaned over, mimicking her prone position with exaggerated groans. "Don't throw your back out, Grandma," he called, and the crowd howled. His live stream hit 3,000 viewers, comments raging. "Women shouldn't even try. Poor trash. Go back to your slum." Emma's hand tightened on the grip, her knuckles whitening. Another memory flashed. The day she'd been escorted out of Pinewood, her design stolen, her office cleared. A male colleague had smirked, saying, "Stick to something simple, Emma. This isn't for girls." She'd vowed never to return, but the letter had changed that. Her system, her life's work, was still here, and she'd prove it worked, even if they spat on her name. Lisa's voice cut through. "She's gonna choke," she said, loud and smug. "Women like her always do. No skill, no guts, just dreams too big for their cheap little lives." The crowd cheered, and another coin sailed through the air, landing with a thunk on Emma's mat. "Welfare Queen" was scrawled in red marker. The live stream comments erupted. "Leech, women are too weak for this." Emma adjusted her scope, one click precise. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of a decade's worth of slights. She could still hear the chairman's voice. "Women don't lead." She exhaled, her breath steadying. The crowd's chant grew louder, a wall of sound meant to break her. Ryan leaned into the mic. "If she hits one target, I'll quit," he bellowed, and the crowd roared, phones raised, ready to capture her failure. But Emma wasn't listening. She slid the bolt open, fed the first round with care. The range display pulsed red, then green. The timer started. The wind shifted, curling across the gravel. Jake shouted, "Give up now, lady. Save us the embarrassment." Lisa added, "You're not one of us. Never will be." The crowd's laughter was a tide, relentless, but Emma's eyes were locked on the target, her finger resting lightly on the trigger guard. She remembered the last boardroom meeting, the men's laughter as they handed her work to someone else. Not for girls. Her breath caught, then released. The crowd's chant, "Go home," was a drumbeat, but it was no match for the rhythm of her pulse. The signal flashed green. The range fell silent, waiting for her to crumble. Emma Stone, the woman they'd erased, the woman they mocked, was ready. And she was done being invisible. Part 3. The shots and the silence. The Pinewood training field held its breath, the wind curling through the high grass like a whisper of judgment. The 1,000-meter range stretched before Emma Stone, a gauntlet of steel and scrutiny, its distant target a mere speck against the earth. The firing platform was a crucible, its cold mats scarred by years of recoil, now bearing the weight of a woman the crowd had branded a nobody. Emma lay prone, her cheek pressed to the worn stock of her old rifle, her breath a steady rhythm against the chaos of chants. "Go home, go home," that still echoed from the viewing deck. Her parka, folded beside her, bore the scars of their scorn. A crumpled paper towel, coins marked back to the kitchen and Welfare Queen. But Emma's eyes, gray and unyielding, were locked on the target, her finger resting lightly on the trigger guard. The crowd's laughter hadn't faded. Jake Carter, the brash shooter, leaned over his lane, his phone still streaming to thousands. "She's gonna choke," he shouted, his voice cracking with glee. "Women don't have the guts for this." The live stream comments surged. "Pathetic. Back to the slums." Lisa Hayes, the female shooter who'd called Emma a disgrace, smirked from her lane. "She's wasting our time," she said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Girls like her plain broke. Shouldn't even try. The deck roared, phones flashing, capturing every moment of what they expected to be Emma's humiliation. Up in the control tower, head trainer Ryan Holt gripped the microphone, his smirk audible. Entry 9, Emma Stone, 1,000-meter attempt. "This'll be quick," he said, pausing for effect. "If she hits one target, I'll dance naked on this desk." The crowd erupted, clapping and whistling, their chants swelling. "Go home! Go home!" The digital scoreboard blinked to life above Emma's lane. Entry 9. No team. No profile. The timer started, red digits ticking down. 10 minutes. 10 shots. One woman against a sea of doubt. Emma exhaled, her breath a faint cloud in the cold air. Her mind flickered to the letter in her pocket. Come back, Emma. Test the system. And the boardroom where she'd been erased. Women don't lead, they'd said. She'd prove them wrong, not with words, but with lead. The signal flashed green. The range fell silent, save for the wind and the crowd's fading jeers. Then, the first shot cracked through the air, sharp and clean, like a blade slicing the tension. The target screen lit up red. Dead center, a perfect bullseye. The crowd's laughter stuttered. Jake's grin faltered, his phone trembling in his hand. Lucky shot, he yelled, but his voice lacked conviction. The live stream comments slowed. What? No way! Emma cycled the bolt, smooth and precise, her body barely shifting. She fired again. Another bullseye, the red dot overlapping the first. The screen flickered, as if struggling to register the precision. The crowd went quiet, a ripple of unease spreading. Lisa lowered her phone, her smirk gone. Beginner's luck, she muttered, but her eyes were wide. Emma fired a third time, then a fourth. Each shot a crisp report that vanished into the hills. The screen showed a cluster no wider than a dime for perfect hits. Ryan, in the tower, leaned forward, his coffee cup forgotten. System error, he said into the mic, but his voice wavered. The crowd shifted, some standing, others clutching their drinks. The chant was gone. Emma's fifth shot landed, the cluster tightening impossibly. The scoreboard operator, a young tech, blinked at his monitor, then reset the camera overlay. This can't be right, he whispered. The live stream hit 5,000 viewers, comments now a mix of shock and disbelief. Is she cheating? No woman's that good. Jake's face reddened. She's rigging it, he shouted, slamming his fist on his mat. But Emma didn't flinch. She fired again, 6-7. Each shot a hammer blow to the crowd's arrogance. The cluster glowed red, a single, unyielding point. The eighth shot loomed, and Emma paused. She lifted her head, just an inch, and turned to face the main camera, its red light blinking above the deck. Her eyes, sharp as steel, locked onto the lens, a silent challenge to the thousands watching. The crowd froze. Lisa gasped, her phone slipping. Jake's stream stuttered, comments exploding. Who is she? Emma lowered her cheek back to the stock, her lips twitching in the faintest hint of a smile. She fired. Bullseye. The screen pulsed, the cluster now a glowing ember. The deck was a graveyard of stunned faces. Ryan's mic crackled, but he said nothing, his hands gripping the railing. The ninth shot came, another perfect hit. The sensors lagged, recalibrating to confirm the impossible. A spectator whispered, "This isn't real." Another shook his head, binoculars forgotten. Emma loaded her final round, her fingers steady, her breath a metronome. The crowd didn't breathe. The wind stilled, as if the range itself waited. Before the 10th shot, Emma reached into her pocket and pulled out the coin marked back to the kitchen. She held it up, letting it catch the light, then tossed it toward Jake's lane. It spun through the air, landing with a clink at his feet. Jake flinched, his face ashen. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath. The live stream comments stopped dead. Emma settled back into position, her cheek kissing the stock. She fired. The screen blinked, then locked. 100 points. Perfect. The printer spat out the score. 0.00 deviation. Verified. The cluster was a single, dime-size hole, glowing red against the paper. The range was silent, a void where laughter had once reigned. Emma sat up, laying her rifle flat on the mat, her hand resting over the receiver. She looked at the target, not the crowd, her face calm but her eyes burning with quiet fire. A new sound broke the silence, a slow, deliberate clap from the deck. A retired general, unnoticed until now, stepped forward, his weathered face unreadable. He pointed to a wall near the range, where a promotional banner hung, cheap vinyl obscuring a brass plaque. With a single motion, he tore it down. The plaque gleamed. Emma Stone, lead designer, founding contributor, Pinewood Trajectory System, 2010 to 2015. The crowd's gasp was a wave, faces paling as the truth hit. Jake dropped his phone, the stream cutting off. Lisa's eyes welled, her hands shaking. Ryan slumped in the tower, his mic dead. Emma stood, folding her mat with care. She picked up the paper towel, tossing it into a nearby bin with a flick of her wrist. The crowd parted as she walked off the line, her boots crunching softly on the gravel. The scoreboard still glowed. Entry 9. 100. No one spoke. No one dared. Emma Stone, the woman they'd mocked, had just rewritten their world. Part 4. The Reckoning and the Legacy. The Pinewood training field lay under a heavy silence, the kind that follows a storm. The 1,000-meter range, moments ago a stage for mockery, now stood as a monument to Emma Stone's triumph. The scoreboard glowed with unyielding truth. Entry 9. 100. Perfect. Her dime-sized cluster of 10 bullseyes, etched in red on the target screen, seemed to pulse with defiance. Emma walked away from the firing platform, her boots crunching softly on the gravel, her frayed parka folded under her arm, her duct-taped rifle case swinging lightly in her hand. The crowd, once a roaring mob chanting, "Go home," parted like a sea, their faces pale, their phones lowered. The coins back to the kitchen welfare queen. The crumpled paper towel and their venomous laughter were relics of a battle they'd lost. Jake Carter, the brass shooter who'd led the taunts, stood frozen at his lane, the coin Emma had tossed back to the kitchen, lying at his feet like a badge of shame. His phone, dropped in the chaos, lay cracked on the gravel, its live stream dead. Lisa Hayes, the female shooter who'd called Emma a disgrace, clutched her rifle, her eyes red with unshed tears, her sponsor-branded gear suddenly feeling like a costume. In the control tower, head trainer Ryan Holt sat slumped, his microphone silent, his boast, "I'll dance naked if she hits one." A noose around his pride. The brass plaque, revealed by the retired general, gleamed on the wall. Emma Stone, lead designer, founding contributor, Pinewood Trajectory System, 2010 to 2015. It was a truth they couldn't unsee, a wound to their arrogance that wouldn't heal. Emma paused at the edge of the range, her gaze sweeping the crowd one last time. She reached into her pocket, pulling out the crumpled letter that had summoned her here. She smoothed it, her fingers tracing the pinewood letterhead, then tucked it back, a quiet vow fulfilled. The general, standing by the plaque, gave her a single nod, his weathered face etched with respect. Emma returned it, her expression calm, but her eyes alight with something fiercer, justice. She turned to leave, her silhouette framed against the ridge, the wind carrying the faint echo of her shots, the apology that shattered silence. As Emma stepped toward the exit, a voice broke the stillness. Ryan Holt, his face flushed with shame, climbed down from the tower, his clipboard abandoned. He stood before the crowd, his voice hoarse but clear. "I was wrong," he said, each word a struggle. "I said women don't belong here. I said she was nothing. I'm sorry, Miss Stone." The crowd gasped, heads turning. Ryan's eyes met Emma's, pleading for acknowledgement. But she didn't stop. She glanced back, her gaze cutting through him, then walked on. The apology hung in the air, a crack in Pinewood's male fortress, but Emma owed them nothing. Not her forgiveness, not her words. The deck erupted in whispers. Jake, his bravado gone, picked up the coin at his feet, his hands trembling. He slipped it into his pocket, not as a trophy but as a reminder. Lisa, wiping her eyes, approached the plaque, her fingers brushing the engraved letters of Emma's name. "I didn't know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't know she was us." Her words were a confession, a reckoning with her own complicity in the scorn. The live stream, briefly revived by a spectator, captured the moment, its comments now a flood of awe. "She's a legend. Never judge a book by its cover." The hidden truth unveiled. As Emma neared the glass doors, a staffer, the same one who'd torn her letter and called her sweetheart, ran forward, his face ashen. He held a yellowed ID badge, its laminate cracked, retrieved from a forgotten archive. "Miss Stone," he stammered. We found this." He handed it to her, his hands shaking. The badge bore her photo, younger but unmistakable, with the title lead designer, Pinewood Systems, and the founding year. Tucked inside was a folded memo dated 2015 from the board that had ousted her. "Miss Stone's contributions are valued, but leadership requires a stronger presence." The euphemism was clear. Stronger meant male. The crowd, close enough to see, fell silent, the memo a dagger to their assumptions. Emma studied it, her face unreadable, then slipped it into her pocket with the letter. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The revelation spread like wildfire. Spectators whispered, piecing together the truth. Emma hadn't just designed the system that scored her perfect 100. She'd been erased because she was a woman, her work stolen, her name buried under banners for energy drinks and tactical gear. The staffer, now trembling, muttered, "We didn't know. We thought you were just—" He trailed off, unable to say nobody. Emma's silence was louder than any retort, a mirror to their shame. The legacy ignited. As Emma crossed the threshold, the range's digital screen flickered, displaying a new message, ballistics module, designed and donated by Emma Stone. It wasn't announced, wasn't required, but there it was, etched in code, a permanent mark of her genius. The crowd stared, some with awe, others with guilt. A young woman, no older than 20, stood at the edge of the deck, her second-hand jacket and scuffed boots a mirror of Emma's. She'd come for a beginner's course, her eyes wide with the story unfolding. She walked to the plaque, her fingers tracing the letters yes, then knelt at the 1,000-meter line, where a small, hand-carved mark yes had appeared in the concrete, unnoticed until now. She smiled, a spark of defiance in her eyes, and whispered, "Thank you." The range transformed in the days that followed. Pinewood's code of conduct was amended. Talent knows no gender, no class, no cover. A line below credited entry 9. 100-point score, verified. Jake deleted his social media account, his taunts erased, but a new video circulated, posted anonymously. Emma's 10 shots, her camera stare, the coin toss, the plaque reveal. It went viral, captioned, "Don't judge. Don't dismiss. She's proof." Lisa, humbled, began mentoring female shooters, her first lesson. Never underestimate anyone, especially a woman. Ryan, true to his word, resigned, leaving a note. "Pinewood belongs to her, not me." Emma didn't return, but her presence lingered. The plaque was lit permanently, no banner daring to cover it again. The carved yes became a pilgrimage point for new shooters, a reminder that greatness wears no uniform. The young woman in the second-hand jacket returned, her shots wild but her stance steady, her breath matching the wind. A shooter behind her whispered, "She shoots like her." The name wasn't spoken, but everyone knew. The lessons were clear. Never judge a person by their coat, their class, or their quiet. Never underestimate a woman, for her strength may rewrite your world. Emma Stone, in her silence, had spoken loudest, proving that true power needs no introduction, no applause, just a steady hand and a heart that won't break. If her story moves you, share it. Tell it to someone who's been underestimated, dismissed, or judged. Visit Diary Women's Story, where stories of resilience and triumph light the way. Like, subscribe, and join us in spreading messages that matter. Stories of women who rise, unbowed, against the odds.